Welcome to the Immunity Community 2020, where our focus is to provide physical, mental, spiritual info and positive vibes to help you endure and adapt. We'll be bringing you experts to provide strategies to handle stress and boost your immunity. All right, so Immunity Community 2020, welcome again, and I'm really excited to have. And it's really funny. I'm thinking of like all these guests that I have. We've been friends for 20 years,
at least
years,
20
like
years,
a long time, man.
Yeah.
I was sadly telling my daughter the other day, who's 15, the whole story about one of our common connections. Jason, who's a friend of ours from a long time ago, passed, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Literally, that's insane. So
you had a whole lot less gray, and I actually had hair.
Yes, yeah. I got a little bit right there, and it's speckled in there. So
I'll tell you something pretty cool that you get a kick out of is that we had his kids over. Before all this started happening, they were starting to come to some of the classes. Jen was bringing them over.
That's awesome. So cool.
So awesome getting to work with those guys, and just seeing Jason inside of them was just pretty cool. And I'm sure Big Guy was smiling seeing that come full circle, man.
He's not just smiling, he's pushing, he's like, all right, time to move. So
I thought that was pretty cool.
For those of you who don't know, Mr. Colin Quay, he is the owner of Elite Athlete Training Services out of Rockville, Maryland, and Woodbine. So he has Montgomery County and a Howard County offices or facilities. I'm going to let you take it over. Can you tell us a little bit about EAT and what it is and where it's from?
So kind of filling on what we were talking about, I took over EATS in 2008 at the untimely passing of our mutual friend and colleague, Jason Adid. Really trying to kind of carry on the vision that we had for this business, which was to cater to the needs of the underserved athletes in our area. Specifically the youth, high school, and college level athletes is really what we wanted to go after. And I think you've been with us for the entire, process, and you've seen how the industry's grown over the years. But when Jason started in 1995, it's a business in the industry that was really, catering to an underserved part of the community. Nobody was really doing anything like that at the time. And, obviously since then it's grown and expanded. There's a lot of people that are doing it, but, I think we're pretty proud to say that we've been doing this for over 20 years and, have been established in the community and, want to continue our vision and our goal of supporting that community.
So back then it was like you could hire one-on-one training, and you guys were like one of the first shows in town, so to speak, that served larger groups and training. And what sports do you serve?
Every and all sport. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this area. It's such a diverse area when it comes to athletes. I mean, we work with all your conventional sports, your football, baseball, lacrosse, soccer. But I mean, we're working with gymnasts. We're working with, Irish dancers. We're working with kids that are playing cricket now. We're working with figure skaters. I mean, you name it. There's such a variety and diversity of high-level talented athletes in this area. It's pretty cool from a coaching standpoint to have that experience, to be able to work with these different type of athletes, even though, a lot of us have no personal experience, in that actual sport, just from obviously our understanding of what we do and the science behind it, it enables us to be able to support and help those athletes, which is pretty cool. And it's a lot of fun for us.
Yeah. And I was a client of yours 10 years ago when I was old back then trying to play club lacrosse and I actually got faster, which is insane. So
you carried your own.
Yeah, I did a little bit. Can you pivot a little bit and just kind of, I want to know, like, really, is there a certain basic tenets of like ways that you approach strength, conditioning, speed, that kind of stuff? And then, can you share that with our audience as to that approach and for the kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think we take a pretty systematic approach when we're assessing how we're going to support one of our athletes. The first thing is just have an introductory, consultation and evaluation with them, get to learn who they are, their past, history in terms of training, in terms of any injuries or any kind of specific needs that they might have, anything that might be impacted by getting into a training program. We do a needs analysis based off of who that athlete is, their age, their training level, developmental level. We look at the sport they're playing and what the common injuries are going to be associated with that sport, so we can work to try to prevent that. even specifically what their position is, what are the demands on the field. If it's not something that we don't necessarily have personal experience with, then we're going to look at video and try to get a better understanding of what that athlete has to do on a day-to-day basis, so that we in turn can design a program around specifically what their needs are and what they have to improve upon.
That's awesome. So it's and I'm like, what comes up to me is like, all right, so like a defensive back has to play differently than an offensive lineman, and you're
Sure.
training and doing that specifically
Right.
for them.
It also gives us an opportunity to assess them when we go through a movement screen with them. If we're seeing areas that are major concerns that are, out of, maybe the area of our expertise, that allows us to lean on the support systems we have with, people like yourself, where if an athlete has a certain, red flag that is going to be, coming up in our assessment, we can send them over to our physical therapy professionals, medical professionals, to support us in the process of supporting that athlete.
So have you seen more like chronic repetitive injuries through certain sports, or just in general? Like what's the injury landscape look like in the last, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. You still look like you're young. So, but we know the truth though. So what's the injury landscape look like now compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago when you got into this?
Unfortunately, I think a lot of it is going to be tied into overuse. Now, obviously, we're not physical therapists. We have a great network of people like yourself that we work with. But we see a lot of athletes that, especially a lot of youth athletes that are playing multiple sports, which is great. But you see a lot of these kids that are playing multiple sports in one season.
Yeah.
So they might play lacrosse and soccer and, football, or whatever sport they're playing. A lot of times they're doing that 3 sports in one season. You see that a lot with a lot of your middle school kids.
Mm-hmm.
And one, they're just not physically in a position where their bodies are able to handle that. And they're playing at a more intense level as they start getting to middle school. They're training, they're not doing a whole lot in terms of a strength development program to really, withstand the impact of doing that. And then you start seeing a lot of these kind of injuries, occurring in a lot of young athletes, something that's pretty concerning to me. I see a lot of young lacrosse players. You see a lot of these kids having stress fractures.
Yeah,
spine.
I've seen that more now than I've ever seen from 6th graders all the way through high school.
Right.
So and we were never seeing that 10 years ago.
Right. And you see these kids that are playing these type of sports are playing them year round, and they're playing multiple sports in one season. So it's great to have a kid who's a multi-sport athlete, but guys, just keep it, one sport, one season. Let's just be smart about it and try to leave some time for training, try to leave some time for recovery, and have a nice balance to everything.
So when you're having these conversations with these kids, is there like, what's the psychological component? Because when you just said, oh, guys, just play one sport, I'm thinking, all right, if I tell that to my son, he's like, Dad, what do you mean I can't play basketball and lacrosse in the same season? So
no, it's more about the parents, actually, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. So parents, key in right here.
Right. There's I reposted a while back. I'm not sure who it was that said it, but it's basically what I just said there is like, look, it's great that you're a multi-sport athlete, but let's not play 3 sports in one season. Like, let's be smart about it. Like, it's great to have a multi-sport athlete. There's a lot of benefits that are going to come from an athlete playing multiple sports, and just, the skills and the athleticism they learn from different sports and playing different sports. Always want to encourage that. Love seeing that, over a lot of the kids that specialize in one sport year round, but let's just be smart when it comes to volume and how we're doing it, and making sure that, we are leaving time for them to do some type of training to help their bodies develop and withstand the demands of their sport.
So for those of us who are not strength or in that world, like I look at the strength development, but then there's also recovery, right?
Yeah.
Or regeneration. So, and again, just like we said before, like I've never seen such a prevalence of spine fractures, especially with lacrosse players, which is, because they're constantly rotating.
Yeah.
What, can you give us some tips? And then also I want to talk about some tips for kids to do now while they're going bonkers during this time period, but also in general, what are some of the injury prevention tips that you can suggest, because we're seeing a lot of core injuries or spine injuries, low back injuries, a lot of neck, or not neck, but we are seeing those, but knee injuries more common. What kind of tips can you give us and our listeners?
I think when we're dealing with especially like where you're seeing that is a lot of these youth athletes, middle school, early high school level athletes that are playing. If you want to get specific to like a sport like lacrosse, you're seeing kids with stress fractures. One is just limiting the volume of the activity that they're doing. doing a lot of work on core strength and more like anti-rotational type work and core stability, getting them to understand, how to create stability, which a lot of them just don't have the body awareness.
Awesome.
They're just going out there and they're playing their sports. So, there's a whole battery of obviously exercises and drills that they can do to help them to create that body awareness, to create that stability, and then also to work on those rotary patterns, but understand they can create control through those rotary patterns using various types of, bands, cable machines, medicine balls, body weight, things like that. There's a ton of exercises. There's a lot of stuff that we have on our YouTube pages that, people can access for free.
Awesome.
Things that we can more specifically work on, or any professional like us, if someone consults with, a strength and conditioning professional that has experience working with youth athletes can assist in helping to design a program to work to counteract that. So if you do have a young athlete that's, playing the sports and they're getting into more of these higher intense travel leagues and they're playing these high level, lacrosse, since we're talking about lacrosse or now lacrosse, seasons, let's just take some time to, put things in perspective and create a space for training, a space for recovery, and a space for practice.
Awesome. I like that. So training, recovery, and practice, all three of those are just as important.
Yeah, they're equally important. If you get out of balance with anything, you're going to have injury. You're going to have problems.
Great.
You have to have a balance of everything.
Well, and one piece I wanted to key on, even though we're not going to get into the science, because we have a lot of listeners here on this page that are not necessarily strength conditioning people, but you mentioned something called anti-rotation. And my understanding of that is you can create rotation or you can resist rotation.
Right.
So is there anything you can expand on that?
Yeah, I think probably a pretty common, exercise that a lot of people use for that would be the Pallof press. I think that's probably pretty common term in today's, sports performance field. When everybody has, Google and able to look up YouTube and can Google that and pretty quickly find, some exercises they can do that are working on bracing and anti-rotation.
Great.
A lot of the dead bugging patterns and things like that, where you're lying on your back, or some basic movements where you're just working on anti-rotation, engaging the core. We talk about, with our kids, imagine if someone's going to punch you in the stomach. If you're going to suck in and brace and get tight, okay, well, you're creating that stability with your spine when you do that. So that's
Awesome.
just a simple exercise and drill to get people to understand how to start to engage their core and prevent any kind of movement. There's a ton of movements that can be done to do that. It's just a matter of, what's appropriate for that athlete in that situation.
Right on. And that also expands to just weekend athletes and people working at their desk and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Both of us, we had some technology trouble in the beginning. That's not our expertise, but we're adapting very quickly, obviously.
In this day and age,
so I'm going to make sure that our team puts down Pallof press, anti-rotation. So we'll have some stuff for all the listeners and viewers so that you can learn about this, because if you just hear these concepts, you got to actually see them through YouTube. So, is there anything that you can leave for our youth athletes? Because I know, I have both children are my kids. They're kind of going nuts. My son has taken it upon himself to start doing ladder drills and everything, which is really cool.
Fantastic.
But what can you put out there for our listeners and the children of our listeners to help them, during this time? Because things are not going to get back to normal. Lacrosse season, I'm so sad, is done, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but that is what it is. So
yeah. At this, with everything going on, these are unprecedented times. We just have to adapt and overcome. We have to stay active and stay fit. We always tell our kids, this is something we're putting out there. There's going to be another season. So we don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to be there. And, you can't be just sitting on your butt this whole time. If you're an athlete or anyone who's concerned about your health and well-being, you got to stay active and stay fit. Use what you have. We're putting stuff out every single day on our social media sites that are our free in-home sessions. So every morning we're posting, from one of our, our sports performance coaches are putting out a workout of the day that athletes can follow. That's pretty much using body weight, maybe a couple small pieces of equipment that, most people have. We have an ever-growing YouTube channel that we're putting up with an exercise library that, people can access for free.
Awesome.
There's some inspiration and some ideas on things they can do depending on what they have access to. And then we're also providing custom in-home training plans for our clientele and people that are interested in that, with a whole training plan, training log, exercise video descriptions, and weekly check-ins. And then for people that want something more, just like what you and I are doing right now, we're offering Zoom programs. So, we have a whole battery of different, options for our athletes and our clientele to help them and support them through this whole process until we can get back to, our hands-on face-to-face training.
Right on, back to normal. So we'll put all those links during we'll get all those links. My tech help that actually does this better than me can do that for us.
Yeah,
but
we're not tech guys.
No, we'll make sure that everybody can find you, and then we'll start posting on a regular basis to Community 2020. So I've been asking all of my guests this. So who have you had to become, because you're not only you're a business owner, you're a strength and conditioning coach, you're a father, you're a husband, you're a son. I'm sure there's lots of other hats that you wear. If you could dig in a little bit, because I want to make this, I want to tap in. Like, have you had to sit in the corner and cry where nobody can see you? But I know you might not admit that. I've done it. So who have you had to become to adapt to these times?
I don't think I've had to become anybody, because I think as a coach, who we are is we're motivators. We're always supposed to be positive. We're always supposed to be inspirational and motivational. I mean, people look to us for inspiration and for support, and we help a lot of our clients get through a lot of hard and challenging times in their lives, and to get to the point where they're, reaching that point of success for them. So I think for us, it's just, carrying on as business as usual, continue to be the bright lights that we are for all of us who are out there in the coaching world. Continue to remain positive and support each other. Do these things like you're doing here, where we support, the people in our industry, in our community. There is no time for rivals and, people that might be in the same industry as us. We're not competing with anybody. We're here to support each other. Yeah. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you're putting together. And, as a coach and a father and a husband and a son and a business owner, I think it's just continue to be positive and supportive and support each other.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. So
thank you,
Colin Quay with Elite Athlete Training Services, and we'll have all the socials and ways to find you. We'll start getting your stuff posted. So I appreciate you shining your light bright, and I'm borrowing some of your energy to stay positive. So
please do, man. It goes back
thank you, sir. All right, man.
Okay, Dr. Paris, take care.
Thank you. Be good, man.